Hey, thanks for joining me for another episode of What's That All About? Did you like my new intro? I worked on that the other day. I liked it. It just so happened that it had all the right colors, so I kept it. All right, today we're looking at some eerie and creepy and scary urban legends. Every state, honestly, across the United States has their own, but I picked 10. A couple of them I'm sure you've heard of, but I'll guarantee you haven't heard them all. I'm going to start right away because 10's a lot to get to. Here's Georgia. Okay, this is the ghost town of Lake Lanier. That's the lore. That's the urban legend. Now, this is the largest man-made lake in Georgia, and at the bottom lies almost fully intact towns, ferries, a racetrack, and multiple cemeteries. Okay, in 1946, the Georgia government was determined to create Lake Lanier. So they bought up an entire villages, towns, all these things. And instead of demolishing them, which is like the natural thing to do when you're going to be making a man-made anything, don't just throw water on it. They just threw water on it. And instead of demolishing anything, that now you have upturned graves and God only knows what else in there. So there have been an unusual amount of freaky accidents, not to mention the 17 deaths alone in 2011. 17, okay? And many people who have drowned have been recovered, but not all of them. People have reported feeling arms and legs in the water, but they never seem to see them. They go looking for them, which honestly, what are you doing in the water anyway? If there was a myth like this out there, that's all I would need to stay in the boat. In the boat. So I don't know, whatever you think of that one. I had never heard of it. And it freaks me out. And I hope I never have to go there. Now, this is a weird one. This one is in Hawaii. It's the Night Marchers, the myth of the Night Marchers. Now, according to Hawaiian lore, they're not evil spirits, but they do demand respect. Now, it's kind of, they demand respect, but in sort of a scary way. The legend has it that if you look directly at a night marcher, you are essentially marked for death. And if you catch yourself in the middle of a procession, like in the parade, in the procession of these marchers, you are to lay down in the middle of the road immediately. That doesn't sound like they're not mean, but I guess it's about the respect. So anyway, next up, Idaho. Had to do it. And of course, it's like one of the saddest ones and creepy. This one's called The Water Babies of Massacre Rocks Area Native American legend that told the story of this. So there was the Shoshone tribe back in the 1500s. They experienced a devastating famine. And the mothers of they took their babies down to the river, and instead of watching them starve to death, they drowned them. God, I cannot even fathom. But today people claim that if you quietly sit by the riverside, you can hear babies crying. This place it's located about 2 hours from me in Pocatello, or as we call it, Pokey. But I don't plan on ever going there because it's just terrible. But there's also a super strange twist to this one. It is said that some say the babies grew gills and fins, stop laughing, gills and fins, and survived, and now seek revenge on their mothers by luring unsuspecting victims to the side of the river and then pulling them in and watching them drown. Bad, right? Awful. Terrible. Let's go to a cup. Now, I'm going to do Maryland and then two together. So Maryland has something I have never heard of before. The Chesapeake Bay Monster. The sightings of this started in the 1930s and is supposedly snake-like, about 30 feet, and has the circumference of a telephone pole, which is just free. It's like anaconda type style. And then in the 80s, it gained a little bit more ground. I mean, this is so not obviously a legitimate picture, but it's still fun to look at it. But in the 80s, I guess I couldn't find any online. I scoured. They talk about these pictures that were taken then, but I didn't find any. And no attacks have ever been recorded, just sightings here and there. And of course, it's probably a little bit of an imagination and just fun to take the pictures and, say that a ripple or something was a monster. But okay, moving on to Vermont and New York. Now, in Lake Champlain, which shares the Vermont-New York border. I used to vacation there on Lake Champlain in Colchester, Vermont, and I knew all about this myth, okay? They have their own version of Chessie, or like the Loch Ness Monster, and his name's Champ. Now, I just remember as a kid, and we all probably psyched each other out, but I mean, there were times where we thought, like we'd be out on the boat, and all of a sudden, like we'd feel something bump it, and we were like, just freaking each other out. It's crazy. And if anyone's watching this that grew up with me there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But anyway, maybe they're cousins, Champ and Chessie. Never know. But let's go on to Minnesota. This one I had never heard of. Now, it's called the Kensington Rune. In 1898, a Swedish-American farmer found a gigantic slab of rock on his farm that had symbols that appeared to be Norse. Now, it's the medieval language of the Norwegians. That's what Norse is. I didn't know exactly what it was, so I just wanted to put a little note in there. And while no one can figure out where it came from, most historians debunk it, citing that there's inconsistencies about the design of the language for the time that it was discovered, because it's said to have been discovered that long ago, and they're saying that it just doesn't fit the timeline historically. But I mean, if the Vikings didn't bring it, who did? And what the hell does it say? They never tell you what it says. I'm going to look around more and see if I can figure it out, because it's so out of place. Anyway, this one I'm so sure you've heard of. It's I'm going to New Jersey for this one, right? This one is called the New Jersey Devil. Now, I bet you didn't know the myth around this, though. The story has been around since the 1700s. A, didn't know that. B, whoa, next. The legend states that a woman by the name of Mother Leeds became pregnant with her 13th child. Okay, first of all, the number 13 alone in my house here with my husband, who's a mariner, he believes that it's bad luck. He never says the number. We'll say 1-3, but we never say that number. Now, it's ironic because it's my mother's favorite number, and we don't even say it in this house. But my husband's in Alaska, so I got away with it. And she said, as she was pregnant, let this child be a devil. Nice mom. So when the child was born, it grew hoofs, wings, horns, and a tail. Like it's not hard enough to be an awkward teenager. Think about having to deal with hoofs, wings, horns, and a tail. The hell kind of mother would wish that on her child? Now, the state obviously has embraced this myth so much that they named their hockey team, their national hockey team, the Jersey Devils, which, of course, I love because I love hockey. So next up, Oklahoma. Now, this one caught my attention because the word portal is part of it. It's called the Mysterious Shaman's Portal, and the mysteries occur mostly in Beaver Dunes Park. And they've been attributed to the fact that it was built upon Native American burial grounds. Now, it also has been called the Oklahoma-Bermuda Triangle. Throughout the United States, there are other triangles. I probably am going to do that for an upcoming episode. There's Bennington, there's Bridgewater, there's Alaska, there's this Oklahoma one. I mean, they're popping up everywhere, not just in Bermuda. But same kind of phenomenons happen in these triangles. So anyway, a paranormal team had gone in there. A bunch of them actually have, and have seen some paranormal activity. And also, it has been rumored that a UFO crashed there as well. And in the 90s, a group of I won't say scientists, we'll just call them researchers. They took soil samples from all over, and they all came back abnormal. Abby something, but that's from a movie. Don't mind me. And they can't figure out why. They couldn't explain why that would be. That's just strange. So anyway, the last one is a doozy. It's a sweet one. Texas has the candy lady. So it sounds innocent enough. In the early 1900s, children in an unnamed rural town in Texas started to go missing, and residents blamed it on the candy lady. The story goes that she would use candy and leave it by the windowsills of these children. And then, promising more candy, she'd leave little notes. Might as well have been a basket full of puppies, for God's sakes. These kids were sold as soon as they saw candy. Now, the story really took off when a farmer supposedly found rotten teeth on his farm, and then later found a body of a little boy, and his pockets were full of candy. Ugh, so scary. Now, little is known about the origins of the story, but some have speculated that the candy lady's real name was Clara Crane. Now, she is a woman who was married, had a little girl named Marcy, and her little girl died young, and she blamed her husband for the murder. She thought that he did it, so she poisoned him. She, in turn, went to an asylum and then made out of bed sheets an actual replica of Marcy, her little dead girl, and started carrying her everywhere and pretending she was alive. So I don't really know how that story ended per se, but I'm going to guess that she probably was away for the rest of her life, sadly. But anyway, see what I told you, though? You definitely didn't know some of these. I know you didn't. But if you liked this episode, please like and subscribe. Subscribe. Really helps the channel. And until next time, I hope you're staying happy and healthy and stay weird. And also take care. All right? Bye.